Ever think you know someone? Then one phone call destroys everything you believed? Yeah, that was me, the day my mom forgot to hang up. It was a Thursday night. I had just finished cleaning up the kitchen and called my mom to say goodnight, like I always did. She lived only a few miles away, but we talked every night. She sounded distracted, so I didn't keep her long. I told her I loved her, and she said, "Love you too, sweetie." Then I hung up, or at least I thought I did. A few seconds later, I heard her voice still coming through the line. She hadn't ended the call. At first, I thought she was talking to the TV, but then I heard another voice. It was Gary, her boyfriend. He asked, "Was that Lena again?" And my mom laughed, a laugh I didn't recognize. Cold. Sharp. "She's so clingy," she said. "I swear, sometimes I wish I never had her. She ruined everything." My heart froze. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, not wanting to believe what I was hearing. Gary chuckled and said, "You're the one who chose to keep her." My mom's voice turned bitter. "Don't remind me. She was never supposed to happen. I should have just given her up like I planned to. Now she's 23, still hanging around, acting like I owe her something. She's such a burden." I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, every word slicing deeper. The woman who had tucked me in when I was sick, who told me I was her whole world, she was saying this. "About me?" Gary asked. "Does she even know about us?" And my mom replied, "She thinks I'm some kind of saint. If only she knew what I really think." She laughed again. It didn't sound like my mother anymore. I didn't hang up. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly. My stomach twisted as she kept talking, mocking the way I dressed, the way I worked long hours at the clinic just to help her with rent. She told him I was pathetic, that I had no life of my own. When she finally hung up, the silence was deafening. I sat there, staring at my phone, my heartbeat loud in my ears. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Every memory of her, every birthday hug, every proud smile, suddenly looked like a lie. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, numb, listening to the clock tick. It was strange how quickly love could turn into something else. That night, I realized something I never wanted to believe. My mom didn't love me. Maybe she never did. And in that quiet, I promised myself I'd never let her see me break. Not ever. The next morning, I got up like nothing had happened. I made my bed, tied my hair back, and went to work at the care home. No one could tell that something inside me had cracked the night before. I smiled at my patients, handed out medicine, listened to their stories, and laughed at their jokes. On the outside, I looked normal. Inside, I felt empty. When my shift ended, I stopped by my mom's house. She greeted me with her usual smile, the one I used to think was warm. Now, it looked different, like a mask I hadn't noticed before. She asked me how work was, if I was eating enough, if I wanted to stay for dinner. I said yes to everything. My voice didn't even shake. We sat across from each other at the table, eating spaghetti like always. She talked about her day, about Gary, about some sale at the mall. I nodded in all the right places. I even laughed once or twice, pretending I didn't hear her voice in my head saying I was a mistake. When she hugged me goodbye that night, my body stiffened. I forced my arms around her, pretending it didn't burn to be that close. As soon as I got home, I took a long shower, trying to wash away the sound of her voice. But it stayed. After that night, I started keeping a notebook. At first, I didn't know why. I just needed somewhere to put everything I couldn't say out loud. I wrote down every fake smile, every small lie, every time she pretended to care. I wrote about how she'd call me sweetheart, while texting Gary about how I never moved out. Writing it down made it feel real. Days turned into weeks. We fell into a pattern, me pretending to be the daughter she wanted, her pretending to be the mother I needed. I made her breakfast on Sundays. She gave me small compliments like, "You look nice today," as if nothing had changed. But I knew better now. I could hear the truth behind her voice every time she spoke. At work, my coworkers said I seemed quieter. I told them I was just tired. Maybe I was. Pretending takes energy. Smiling takes energy. Loving someone who doesn't love you back takes everything. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I'd sit by the window and open my notebook. The pages were filling fast. Every line was a memory I couldn't forget. I didn't know what I was planning. Something, maybe. Not revenge. Not yet. Just a way to make sense of it all. Sometimes I'd imagine confronting her, looking her straight in the eye and saying, "I heard everything." But then I'd close the notebook and remind myself, she didn't deserve that. Not yet. So I kept pretending, kept smiling, and kept writing. And slowly, I stopped feeling guilty for lying. After all, she taught me how. One Saturday morning, I went to my mom's house to help her clean. It was something I'd done for years, just part of our routine. She was out running errands with Gary, and I thought it would be easier to finish before they got back. I started with the living room, then moved to her bedroom. Everything looked the same as always. Same old perfume bottles, same jewelry box, same neat dresser drawers. I was dusting when a stack of envelopes caught my eye in the back of the bottom drawer. They were tucked under some sweaters, almost hidden. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled them out, thinking maybe they were old bills or family photos. But when I opened the first one, my stomach dropped. It was a letter from an adoption agency dated the year I was born. My mom's name was on it. My name too. The words were short, but clear. She had started the process to give me away. My hands began to shake as I read the next few pages. Letters from the agency asking if she wanted to move forward. She never replied, but the fact that she even started, that was enough. I sat on the edge of her bed, feeling like the air had been punched out of me. My whole life, she'd told me I was her reason to keep going. But these papers told a different story. I tried to calm down, but something made me keep searching. In another envelope, I found a bank statement. The account name was mine, Lena Brooks College Fund. My dad had started it before he left. The balance was $0. Every dollar had been withdrawn 2 years ago, and attached to it was a note in Gary's handwriting. Thanks for helping me out, Pat. I'll pay you back soon. That was when my hands stopped shaking and turned cold. I couldn't believe it. She'd taken the money meant for my future to bail out a man who didn't even like me. By the time they got home, I had put everything back exactly where I found it. I didn't say a word. At dinner, they acted like everything was fine. Gary complained about bills again, saying, if that girl would just move out, we'd have more breathing room. My mom didn't defend me. She just sighed and said, it's complicated. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I realized I'd never been part of her plan. I was just something she tolerated. A backup when things went wrong. I finished my food, washed my plate, and went home without saying goodnight. Sitting alone in my small apartment, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The kind of calm that comes when you stop waiting for people to change. That night, I decided I was done being her safety net. Whatever she needed me for, it would never be me again. After finding those letters, something inside me changed. I stopped trying to understand her. Instead, I started making plans. I told no one. At work, I began taking double shifts. The extra hours were exhausting, but every paycheck meant more money in my savings account. I didn't touch a cent of it. Each dollar was a step closer to freedom. When my mom called, I still answered. When she asked me to come over, I did. I smiled, cooked, cleaned, and listened to her endless stories. To her, it probably looked like nothing had changed. But inside, I was slipping away a little more each day. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't try to please her. I just let her talk, nodding when she wanted attention and pretending when she wanted love. Gary started visiting less. I could tell he was getting bored. Without me around to cook or run errands, he had no reason to hang around. My mom noticed. She'd call me late at night, her voice sharp and shaky, asking, "Are you mad at me? You've been distant lately." I'd laugh softly and say, "Of course not, Mom. Just busy with work." She'd sigh, then switch to her sweet tone, the one she used when she wanted something. "You know you're my sweet girl, right? Don't stay away too long." Every time she said those words, it felt like a trick. I used to believe her when she called me sweet girl. Now, I knew it was just another tool to keep me close. She didn't love me, she needed me. There was a difference. The more she tried to pull me back in, the calmer I became. I'd bring her groceries, tidy up the house, and listen while she complained about Gary. I'd smile, hand her a cup of coffee, and say, "Don't worry, Mom. I'm not going anywhere." She'd smile back, looking relieved, never realizing what I really meant. I was saving every penny, watching my account grow, waiting for the right moment. Some nights, I'd sit on my bed and picture what it would feel like to leave everything behind. No more fake smiles. No more walking on eggshells. Just peace. At work, I stayed late whenever I could. The patients didn't expect anything from me besides care and kindness. With them, I could breathe. They didn't know my story, and I liked it that way. At home, my mother kept testing me. She'd ask for favors she didn't need, tell me stories meant to make me feel guilty. I listened quietly, never fighting back. Let her think she still had control. It made things easier. What she didn't see was that I'd already left her in my mind. I was there in body only, doing what needed to be done. And when the time came, she wouldn't see it coming. I decided it was time. After weeks of pretending, saving, and waiting, I finally knew what I wanted to do. I called my mom and told her I wanted to take her and Gary out to dinner. I said it was to celebrate family. She sounded thrilled. She laughed that fake laugh of hers and told me how proud she was that I still cared. Gary agreed right away. They had no idea what was coming. I picked a small Italian restaurant downtown, one she always said was her favorite, but never wanted to pay for. When we got there, she was dressed up in her nicest outfit, hair curled, lipstick bright. She hugged me like everything between us was perfect. Gary gave me a half smile and a pat on the shoulder, already looking bored. We ordered pasta, wine, and garlic bread. The candles flickered between us, and the air smelled like tomato sauce and cheap perfume. My mom talked nonstop about her job, her friends, how hard she worked to raise me right. I smiled and listened. Gary nodded here and there, checking his phone between bites. When the waiter brought dessert, I took a deep breath. My hands didn't shake this time. I set my phone on the table and said quietly, "There's something I want to share too." My mom looked curious. Gary didn't even look up until I pressed play. The sound came out clear, the recording I had saved from that night. Her voice filled the space, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "She's such a burden," the voice said. "I wish I never had her." The restaurant went silent. Forks stopped moving. My mom's smile faded instantly. "Lena, what is this?" she whispered, her face turning pale. Gary froze, eyes darting around the room as if he could disappear. I didn't say anything. I just let it play. Every cruel word she'd said poured out into the air. The laughter, the insults, the disgust in her voice. People at other tables started glancing over. A woman behind us whispered, "Oh my God." When the recording ended, my mom reached across the table, voice trembling. "Lena, honey, that's not what it sounded like. I was upset that day. You're twisting this." I looked at her and smiled, calm and steady. "No, Mom. I just wanted to return the favor. Let everyone hear what I heard." She froze. Gary pushed his chair back, muttering something under his breath. My mom's face was red now, her eyes wet, but I felt nothing. I stood up, placed some cash on the table for my meal, and grabbed my coat. My mom called my name once, but I didn't turn around. As I walked out, the sound of people whispering followed me. For the first time, I didn't feel like the child who needed her approval. I felt free. After that night at the restaurant, everything changed fast. Word about what happened spread around town. My mom's friends stopped calling her. The women she used to gossip with didn't invite her out anymore. Even the neighbors started avoiding her. No one wanted to be around her after hearing what she said about her own daughter. Gary didn't stay long either. I think he realized I was really gone this time. I had moved out the same week, taking only what belonged to me. Before I left, I made one last quiet move. I took back the money from the account she had stolen. I'd been careful for weeks, moving small amounts a little at a time. By the time she noticed, it was too late. The balance was empty, just like the way she'd left mine years ago. I found a small apartment across town. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. The first night there, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. It felt strange, peaceful but lonely too. I thought I'd feel happier, maybe even proud. But mostly I felt tired. Revenge wasn't what I wanted in the end. It just happened because I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Still, there was something different in the air. I could breathe again. I didn't have to walk on eggshells or pretend anymore. I didn't have to answer her calls or explain where I was going. I could wake up when I wanted, eat what I wanted, and live without that heavy feeling pressing on my chest. Sometimes at night, I'd think about her. I wondered if she was sitting in that same kitchen, pretending everything was fine, telling herself it wasn't her fault. But it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't part of her story now. She could spin it however she liked. I decorated my little place slowly, secondhand furniture, cheap curtains, a few plants by the window. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. Every morning before work, I'd make coffee and sit by the window, watching the sunrise. It was quiet, and for once the quiet didn't feel like punishment. My coworkers noticed I smiled more. They asked if something good had happened. I just said I moved. That was all they needed to know. I still carried the pain with me, but it didn't control me anymore. Some days it hurt to think about her, about how easy it was for her to break me. Other days, I barely thought about her at all. She called a few times, but I never answered. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. For the first time, I understood what peace really meant. It wasn't happiness. It was silence, the kind that doesn't hurt. And that was enough for me. A few weeks passed quietly. I was getting used to my small apartment, my new routine, and the peace that came with being alone. Then one evening, just as I was about to eat dinner, someone knocked on my door. The sound made my stomach twist. I already knew who it was before I opened it. My mom stood there, her eyes red and swollen. She looked nothing like the woman who used to walk around acting like she owned every room she entered. Her hair was messy, her clothes wrinkled, and her voice cracked as soon as she spoke. "Lena," she said, "please. I need to talk to you." I didn't open the door wide, just enough to see her face clearly. She started crying, real tears this time, not the kind she used to fake when she wanted attention. "Gary's gone," she said between sobs. "He left me. He took everything. I have no one left." I stood there silently, not sure what to feel. For a second, I almost saw the mother I used to love, the one who made pancakes on Sundays and told me bedtime stories. But then I remembered her voice from that phone call, the one that said I was never supposed to happen. The memory hit like a cold wind. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I know I hurt you," she said softly. "I said things I didn't mean. I was angry, stupid. But I'm still your mother. We can start over, right? Please, Lena. You're all I have left." Her words echoed in the hallway, but they didn't sound the way they used to. I looked at her for a long time. She was waiting for me to open the door wider, to let her in, to say everything was forgiven. But I couldn't do it. Not this time. "You lost that title," I said quietly, "the moment you told someone I was your mistake." She froze, like she couldn't believe I'd actually said it. Then her face crumpled. She took a shaky breath, whispered something I couldn't catch, and turned to leave. Her footsteps faded down the hall until I couldn't hear them anymore. I closed the door and leaned against it. My hands were trembling, but I didn't cry. Not a single tear came out. I thought I would feel satisfied or angry or maybe even guilty, but I just felt empty. The apartment was silent again. I walked back to the table and sat down in front of my untouched dinner. The food had gone cold, but I didn't care. I just stared at the door, thinking about how strange it felt to finally stand my ground. For years, she had all the power. Now, with one sentence, I took it back. A few days after she came to my door, I found an envelope in my mailbox. My name was written on it in shaky handwriting. There was no return address, but I knew right away it was from her. For a moment, I thought about throwing it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. I took it inside, sat down by the window, and carefully opened the flap. Inside was a letter a few pages long. The paper was smudged in places, like she had cried while writing it. Her words started simple. She said she didn't expect me to answer her calls, but she needed me to know the truth. She wrote that she was 19 when she got pregnant with me. She said she had no money, no support, and no idea what to do. My dad, she said, had promised to stay but left before I was even born. She said that when he walked out, something in her broke, and she never really healed from it. As I read on, her tone changed. She wrote that every time she looked at me, she saw the life she could have had if things had gone differently. She said she took out her pain on me because she didn't know how to face herself. She admitted that she lied to feel strong and that the person she hated most wasn't me, it was herself. But it wasn't an apology. Not really. She didn't say she was sorry. She just explained as if that made everything okay. She wrote that she still blamed my father for everything that went wrong. She said she wished she could have been the kind of mother I needed, but life didn't give her that choice. When I finished reading, I just sat there, staring at the words. My hands felt cold, and my chest was heavy, but not with sadness, more like exhaustion. I had waited years for her to say she was sorry, to mean it. But even now, she couldn't. The letter was full of excuses, full of ways to avoid the truth. I read it one more time, slower this time, and then I folded it neatly. I went to the kitchen, lit a match, and held the corner of the paper to the flame. It caught quickly, curling black as it burned. I watched until the last bit turned to ash in the sink. When it was gone, I felt lighter. Not happy, just free. I realized I didn't need her to say the right words. I didn't need her love anymore. Some people can't give what they never learned to feel. I finally understood that. And for the first time in my life, I stopped waiting for her to change. Life slowly started to move again, this time in the right direction. I kept working my shifts at the care home, saving what I could, and one afternoon, I filled out an application for nursing school. I hesitated before hitting submit, afraid of failing, but I did it anyway. For once, I wasn't doing something to please anyone else. It was for me. The days that followed felt different. I didn't rush anymore, and I didn't force myself to smile when I didn't want to. I talked more with a few coworkers I trusted, people who didn't expect anything from me except honesty. We'd have coffee after work, talk about movies, or share stories about the patients we looked after. It wasn't anything special, but it felt real. At home, I started adding small things that made the place feel like mine. A secondhand couch, a soft blanket, a cheap frame for a photo I found while unpacking an old box. It was me as a kid, missing front teeth, laughing at something off camera. I looked happy in that picture, free of everything that would come later. I placed it on my shelf near the window. Every time I saw it, I reminded myself that I was protecting her now. That little girl who deserved love and safety, even if no one had given it to her back then. The more I focused on my own life, the less space my mom took up in my head. She tried to reach out through relatives. My aunt called once saying, "Your mom misses you. She's not doing well." I just listened quietly and said I hoped she'd be okay. I didn't ask for details, and I didn't call back. I wasn't angry anymore, but I didn't want to open that door again. At night, I studied for nursing exams, sitting by the same window where I used to write in my secret notebook. The difference now was that I wasn't writing about pain or anger. I was planning my future. I imagined working in a real hospital, helping people who needed care. I imagined having my own place that felt safe, warm, and filled with peace. Sometimes loneliness crept in, especially on quiet evenings when the world outside went still. But it wasn't the same kind of loneliness I used to feel. It didn't hurt as much. It was gentle, almost peaceful, like silence after a storm. Months went by, and I got my acceptance letter. I stood in my kitchen, reading it over and over until it sank in. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud. Not because someone else told me to be, but because I earned it. I looked over at the photo on the shelf, that smiling little girl, and whispered softly, "We made it." Months passed quietly. My days were full of work, classes, and studying. Life had settled into something calm and steady. The pain that once sat heavy in my chest had turned into something softer, something I could live with. One evening, after a long day at school, I came home, made some tea, and sat on the couch with my books. The apartment was peaceful, the kind of quiet that used to make me uneasy, but now felt natural. My phone was charging on the counter when it buzzed. I glanced over and froze. Her name lit up the screen, Mom. For a moment, everything around me went still. My heartbeat slowed, and my hands felt cold. It had been months since I last heard from her. I watched the screen as it rang, my thumb hovering over the phone but never touching it. I didn't want to hear her voice. I didn't want the memories rushing back. So I let it ring. When it stopped, the silence returned. A small dot appeared on the screen, one new voicemail. I stared at it for a long time before I pressed play. Her voice came through, shaky and weak. "Lena," she said, pausing like she wasn't sure I'd listen. "Please, I need you." Then there was a small sob, and the message ended. I stood there in the kitchen, phone still in my hand, listening to the quiet hum of the fridge. For years, that voice had controlled me, made me feel guilty, made me question myself, made me run to fix problems that weren't mine. But now, hearing it didn't hurt the same way. It sounded distant, like it belonged to someone from another life. I didn't replay the message. I didn't call back. I didn't even wonder what she needed. I just opened the voicemail menu, pressed delete, and watched it disappear. Then I walked to the window. Outside, the sky was dim and calm, the city lights glowing faintly in the distance. I took a slow breath, feeling the cool air through the glass. It wasn't happiness that I felt, it was peace. The kind that comes after years of noise, after storms, after endless trying. Silence used to scare me because it reminded me of being alone. But now it meant freedom. I stayed there for a while, watching the night move slowly, the streets quiet, the world still. My phone sat on the counter, dark and silent. I knew she might call again someday, but I also knew I didn't owe her anything anymore. For the first time, I didn't feel small or scared. I just felt still. The silence around me didn't feel empty. It felt safe.